go to Vanessa quickly. Vanessa, you've done this yourselves with Aena. Can you tell us a little bit, just the highlights of the project that you did?
Yes. So we did 3 POCs. Our first experience introducing digital identity in airport environment was in Menorca. We started in 2019, and we performed a small POC through the passenger can go through the boarding gate and the security lines through biometrics service, and the roll was made in the check-in counter area or in a kiosk on the check-in area. The characteristics of our POC was that we did in an incremental way. We started with this one, and then we added more use cases, adding an enrollment on the APP, and also we added the check-in and self-drop for the loop. So I would like to highlight that we did this and we collaborated with many airlines and technological companies in order to, we wanted for the market to be ready for a deployment. I think the digital identity is a reality, and now is the time to implement in the airports.
Perfect, thank you. So it's a really fascinating subject area, but it's quite complicated because you seem to need a bit of infrastructure. You've got a token, it's your face, isn't that great? You don't have to carry something anymore. I've actually experienced biometric entry to aircraft a few times, biometric immigration, and it has been a game changer experience, you know, 3 seconds instead of 15 seconds. But Bill, NEC, you're one of the leading technology companies of the world. Tell me a little bit about some of the rest of the infrastructure that I need to do this. Tell me about the overall environment.
Sure. Well, I think you can make it as complicated as your use case or your implementation profile might want, but at the end of the day, the technology is really that it's pretty simple. You create a decentralized digital identity or verifiable credential. Today it's fully decentralized. It exists on the wallet on your mobile phone. So it's always with you and you have control of it. So from a GDPR consent-based kind of privacy focus, you own and control your identity. Now when you want to use it, you release that consent and you're sharing your token, your digital token, along with the boarding pass string or other associated metadata. So selective consent of what information might be comprised within your verifiable credential. Different use cases might require different pieces of data. Don't need to share it all for every use case. But at the boarding gate, you need a boarding pass, and you need your photo, your facial image loaded into a gallery to be matched against. That's simple. Go to duty free. They don't need to see your passport or boarding pass. They can just get an attestation that you are on a qualifying international flight, you have a passport, and oh, you're buying some liquor? You're of age. They don't need to see your personal information. So the technology is there. It's fully decentralized. It's in operations. I think POCs are very important for different stakeholders and airlines and airport operators to try it out. But really, the technology, from a simplified standpoint, is operational today.
Okay, so you mentioned there a few of the different stakeholders that we have to deal with. I can kind of understand pretty quickly the benefits to an airport. I can flow through that airport a little bit more seamlessly. If you remember yesterday, a lot of our conversations were about seamless passenger experience. What about for the other stakeholders? As an airline, what am I getting from it? Harvey, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, sure. So if you think about today's world where we fill in our APIS details, our passport data, invariably we as airlines ask our customers to type those into a web form on our websites and submit them. We might store them in your profile if you're a loyal customer, but effectively it's untrusted data. It's typed in, and we know from data that we've looked at previously that a high percentage of it has mistakes in it. So it gets, customer types it in, hits submit, Airline may hold it for convenience, but then we pass it on to the governments, and invariably it's a fire and forget. Most of the times we don't get a response, and we don't give a response back to the customer. So what does that do? That just drives more cost and complexity into our airport operations, because when the customer arrives at the airport wanting to travel, we have to check it again. They have to go and either visit a kiosk, or they visit a desk, or they go to immigration, and literally, forgetting about the stuff we've sent online, they're just overwriting it once they've used a machine to read the passport and create that trusted data. Now, digital identity and assured data is what this is all about. You can do it at home. We know it's a valid passport because when your mobile phone reads what's called the MRZ on the information page and then opens up the chip and reads the data from the chip, it's actually checking the digital signatures and the digital certificates. That really is an authentic passport issued by the Irish government. The data I've read from it hasn't been tampered with because it's been digitally signed. So therefore that data is now trusted. And if we can send that from home and send it through the system and then reply back to the customer and say, thanks very much, yes, you're all good to go. The government that you're departing from has said you're okay to leave. The government where you're going to says you're okay to arrive. Then that person can then have that nice experience in the airport, which is great for us, hopefully improves our NPS. But also, it takes out that complexity of us having to design catch-all processes that mean that we need to stop that customer at some point in the airport and check their documents again. And takes away that anxiety from the customer that said, is this person going to say no to me and tell me that I can't travel today? Which has a huge impact on our customers, I think. So, huge benefit for us. And if I could answer for the governments, it's benefit for the governments as well, because they then have better data before travel, whether it's from a security or an immigration point of view. And that will help streamline and make more efficient their processes as well.
Thank you, Harvey. I must admit, one of the things I've never understood is why, when I apply for a visa, the government gives me a piece of paper that I give to an airline for them to check with the government that the piece of paper they gave me was correct. It is a rather insane process if you think about it. Why don't the airline just say to the government, can this person travel? Or even better, come to me and say, what have you got that's verified that says that, which is where this comes from. Now, just thinking about this, I've managed to use this once in a test environment where there was something set up at the end of a conference for all the conference attendees to try as they were going through the airport. And I've used it once in anger, in real life. But that's only 2 airports in maybe 1,000 journeys. What's the scale of this going to be? Should it be something that I can expect to see in my Tier 3, Tier 4 airports? Or is it something that's going to be limited to a handful of hubs? If I can start off with you, Ursula, where's the break-even point?
I couldn't give you any figures or anything in terms of planning for this, but I think one thing is for sure is it takes a little bit. It's like the domino. I think it takes a little bit of the effect to get started because there are so many parties involved, and obviously there are also lots of different governments involved. So it needs some alignment on standards and moving forward. But what is interesting, since we launched this and presented actually this initial POC in Chicago last year, the impact of this was so huge, it was even unexpected. It appeared in Forbes even, and suddenly now for the 2.0 version, so for this year, there are so many more providers. I think it is now more than 50 participants and so many more airlines who wanted to participate to make this happen, and a number of more governments. And I think this just shows the momentum of that it can actually then move very fast, because I think the more it is going to be taken seriously, and also realizing that it is possible, and seeing these POCs and seeing, so we have already a number of really direct connectivity, we've done the integrations, will give a lot of confidence. And maybe it's also a little bit comparable, so to your question about which size of airport, it's maybe a little bit also similar to, I still remember when it started that you could actually use your biometric passport and you had these machines at the arrival in the airports, which initially there was never a queue. The usage was very limited, and also the machines often weren't yet working properly. And if you look at what it is like today, it is completely different. And I think there's probably some similarity, both in terms of customers suddenly believing now it is possible, as well as the engagement of all of the providers and ensuring that it works consistently. And after that, it will go very fast. I think it will go faster than we think, but to have more live cases really visible, couple of years, but very, very fast.
All right, and Bill, again, in terms of scale, it feels to me like being a decentralized solution, that should benefit the scale issue, because I'm not having to build lots of complex infrastructure to hold information. Passengers looking after that bit of it. Is that a fair assumption?
Absolutely, and I think the COVID pandemic was definitely a dramatic and catastrophic event for airlines and airports, but also a compelling event that they needed to look at investing in frictionless technologies. Biometrics is the prime one of those. Tier 1, Tier 2 airports are investing heavily. Frankfurt Airport has come out and stated that all of their touch points in their new Terminal 3, actually they're retrofitting all of their self-bag drops in Terminal 1 and Terminal 2 with SETA SmartPath with biometrics capabilities. All those new touch points have cameras in them, whether they already use them or not. But they're setting themselves up as part of their current investment to be ready for what's coming. There's no reason why Tier 3, Tier 4 airports can also make, with a very small investment, take advantage of those capabilities. And now from a traveler, a user experience perspective, an airline employee or baggage handler or airport operator, now across the ecosystem, no matter where you're going, you can expect and have the same level of efficiency and experience. And it becomes even more compelling for the smaller airports. If you've got only a few flights a day and out of two gate agents, one calls sick, you're 50% staffed, but the same number of passengers are going through there. Well, ease their workload, look into a camera, and now the passengers are through the airport. So you can handle those regular disruptive operations a lot easier.
Thanks, Bill. And that brings me to you, Vanessa, because you've got an operational background. You're responsible for airport process, responsible for the actual operation of the airport. What do you see as the main benefits for you in the digital identity flows, and how is it helping your teams who are working behind the scenes at the airport to keep everybody moving smoothly?
So, from my point of view, it all comes down to increasing security, increasing passenger experience, and more efficiency processes. So, when we started this digital identity roadmap, the first point where we installed the infrastructure was in the headquarters, allowing our employees to enter on the building with digital identity. So if we plan a deployment in all our airports, why don't we use that infrastructure for the rest of the employees that we have and the rest of the stakeholders? I can give you some numbers. For example, we have 46 airports in Spain, as I mentioned. So we have more than 10,000 employees of Aena in our Spanish network, and that numbers multiplies by 3 if we take in account all the stakeholders and all the subcontractors, third parties. So that could result in massive reduction of times, increasing security, and improvement of the employee experience.
Excellent, thank you. That's very interesting. Now, I'm just wondering if there's any burning questions in the audience. I have one over here.
My name is James Mackenzie. I work for a business called Hippo. We actually built and run the largest ID platform in the UK, which is the NHS, 45 million users. My question is, have you guys, you talked a lot about financial services and neobanks, you talked about Uber and stuff. Have you looked at things like healthcare that have the same problem? Because you've got central government involved, you've got private operators involved, you've got identity providers involved, and that they're a few years ahead of you guys in terms of where you are and how they're solving those problems. Are you looking at healthcare? Are there things there that you think you could learn?
I think Andrew pointed the finger at me, so
Thanks, James.
That one. The answer is absolutely yes. Not my team, but an associated team of ours is actually going through HIPAA certification in the US with digital identity-based solutions for healthcare. If you want to learn about more, come find me afterwards, be happy to talk to you. But it's, to that point, 10 years ago, most of us weren't using an iPhone to store credit cards or use Apple Pay or Google Wallet. And, now in the US, there are a couple of states that, I can use my Maryland driver's license and load it in my phone. So more and more, our personal devices, our smartphones, are sometimes becoming smarter than us, but they're a tool, right? They're becoming a tool that we use every day. I think someone yesterday said that the average person in a day unlocks their iPhone 88 times. Are you using that to check Facebook or Instagram or your email? And, how often are you using it to share your digital identity, to pull out your driver's license? Or it grows more and more. So this digital identity growth trend in the travel industry is leading the charge a little bit, but other industries are also following suit. MasterCard is doing some things with biometrics and payment modules. So it's just outside of airports and airlines, there's hotels, there's car rental companies, there's resorts, there's how can I pay for my journey from the flight to the Uber or Lyft from the portal to my hotel, check into the hotel just by looking into a camera, my reservation is known, my loyalty points are updated. Oh, I want to book a golf excursion. I can share my digital identity without actually sharing physical credentials that someone doesn't really need to look at anymore.
Absolutely, and just on that point, yesterday I got an email from, I'm Swiss and my Swiss identity is electronic, and I got an email from the health company saying, hey, your health data is now available electronically if you want to register, and that's being paid, every Swiss citizen, it's costing $15 a person to register, it's being paid for by each individual state. So it's pretty big stuff, yeah. Now, before, I'm going to come back to the audience for another question in a couple of minutes, okay? So if you want to ask something, think of it, you've got time to compose it. But an interesting thing just occurred to me. When I use a traditional identity, I wander into the airport and I present my passport and someone's going to check me in and they're going to, despite me having a boarding pass on my phone, they're still going to give me another boarding pass because that's what we like to do. And then I'm going to go through security, and when I come to boarding, they're going to check it all again. And I never, in my time as an airline person, in sort of 35 years of working with airlines, I never saw a business case for that. Yeah, it was a simple, the state says, you must verify this, yeah? Where's the business case for identity coming from now? Are you having to build we're saving X number of people, we're saving X amount of time, that's why you should invest in the technology business case? Who'd like to take that on? Maybe Harvey, you can mention it to start off with if you're still there. I did hear a disconnection.
Oh, am I here? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, the business case will obviously be important, critical. We were moved on. I sort of mentioned it earlier in terms of NPS for the customer. Makes the airport more efficient, takes out complexity from there. So those people who are currently doing quite transactional, let's look at this document that was actually, the passport booklet hasn't really changed in 100 years. So fiddling around trying to find that photo page to then look at it and manually the person in the picture is the person stood in front of me, the name in the document is the name in our system, and yes, it looks like an authentic passport, so we have to train our staff to do that. So there are savings, for sure, but I think, you know, people will expect it. When the big tech providers have decided to put things in like Apple Pay and Google Pay, they are so compelling for the customer that they sort of wash through the industry. The same with the health apps now. You know, from the pandemic was almost the catalyst for that. And yes, as an airline, we were talking to the guys who developed the NHS login, because we were trying to get the certificates or the credentials that said this person's had a COVID test or has had a vaccination. So yeah, we've done it before. But in this case, the whole, effectively you've got relying parties, which is the airline or the stakeholder in the airport, and you've got attribute providers. So, you know, whether it's a financial services company or whether it's a health provider, in our case, it's an immigration authority. They are providing an attribute to us, a verified credential, which is given to the customer that then can be shown to us. So everybody in this value chain needs to have their own business case to make it happen for them. But I think, you know, the will of the customer, when they see how easy it is and what a good experience it can be, will help drive it through, because we'll see it in other areas as well.
Great, thank you, Harvey. Kind of part of what I'm trying to get to is I can see benefits for every stakeholder, but I'm wondering who's signing the checks. Ursula and Bill, have you got a thought on that?
Well, I think for sure what I also mentioned during that presentation, that there is a case for revenue, because if customers are relaxed, they will actually spend time to maybe even buy more services already during their check-in process. They will think more about how to make their peer experience more adapted and explore more about this. So there is for sure also a revenue case. So I think it is not just a cost case, both from the airline and the airport perspective, actually, because also, and there are several statistics which prove that customers simply don't spend at the airport if they've gone through security and through a very stressful process. So I think that's an important one. And ultimately, probably the case will be made together, because even the points that Bill mentioned earlier, in terms of staff will be more relaxed and can focus on more value-add services. So it will be, I think there will be several drivers and they will reinforce each other. And that's where, again, the domino comes in. I think starting this and realizing this, it will then go very fast, and the business case will grow over time, and it will get stronger and get more adoption.
So I think to piggyback Ursula and some points that were made earlier today and yesterday, from a passenger or traveler standpoint, reducing their anxiety, whether it's the road warrior who's always worried about, getting to the gate late and, is the bag going to make it through, or the, 1 or 2 time traveler per year who's not used to these very crowded, becoming more crowded airport environments. How do you reduce their anxiety? And then from the airline and airport operator perspective, enabling the agents to be able to free up their time to have more empathy, to help reduce the anxiety of those people who actually need that help. And that's where these tools such as digital identity and biometrics and automation capabilities from baggage handling and others that we've heard about the past 2 days really kind of help both sides in reducing the anxiety, increasing the empathy of the people who have to serve them. It's a valuable proposition. Plus the return on investment, the efficiency of the operations, quick returns. If you can get more turns at a gate or a terminal, maybe you can seat another flight at the gate in a day, and that's revenue operations. Get people airside, they're spending money in the restaurants and the bars.
Absolutely, as we all do tend to do. Now, I promised a quick question from the audience. Is there anyone who has one ready who wants to ask something? Otherwise, I'm going to ask each of my panel members, I'm going to finish with you, Harvey, so stay on the line, if they could just sum up what they would like everybody in this audience to remember about digital identity their takeaway from the conference. So let's start off with you, Vanessa.
So I have two messages. One, digital identity is a reality, I said before, and I hope next year to have more airports involved and airlines, so a passenger can go through a digital identity process in between international airports. And standardization, that is something that we need, and I hope everyone can collaborate on that.
So aside from obvious statement of buy NEC and our solutions, I think the technology's here and it's now. A lot of people did POCs and pilots, and some still are, and it works for them. But more and more, we see them going straight into the tender phase and RFP, and just going straight in and opting in and buying and implementing these solutions from an operational perspective to try and get those gains now.
I would say digital identity, it's actually a key part of the modern retailing, which we are talking about here at the event, because it is the logical additional step to really create a seamless journey. And this means as well that we talk about ancillary sales, we talk about personalization and really focusing on the customer and putting the customer at the center. It is an absolute key part of it, and therefore it is something actually to strive for as a next step and an absolute must to support.
Perfect. Well, with that, I'd like to... Oh, Harvey. Harvey, are you still there?
I thought you'd forgotten me.
Never.
Yeah, so I'd echo all of those statements, but I was scribbling down, yeah, it's coming. It's coming to other industries and it will come to ours. The tech is there, as we've said. Some governments are already moving and then enabling it for travellers. The Dutch, the Canadians and others. The US has made great strides with TBS, which has switched this on and made contactless seamless travel work. But us, in terms of what we need to do, well, we need to lobby, we need to challenge all of our partners and think about this in all the business cases work we're doing. We need to make sure that people understand it and know the challenge.
Perfect, thank you, Harvey. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, can I get a loud round of applause for our panel? Thank you ever so much.